Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the regularly scheduled Concord Township Board of Trustees meeting for Wednesday, July 5th to order. Please join Connie Luda in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's have roll call, please.
Mrs. Luda?
Here.
Mr. Galloway?
I am here.
And Mr. Malcheski is out of town.
Mr. Malcheski is enjoying a much-needed vacation with fishing, so good for him.
Chris, would you hand me the agenda?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I didn't get one. Thank you.
Well, you moved.
Yes, I moved.
We're going to go ahead and table the minutes until Paul is back and has an opportunity to review those. That would move us into elected official reports. Fiscal Officer, Mrs. Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. As of June 30th, we were 50% of the way through the calendar year. The treasury balance for the 20 funds within the township treasury was $5.7 million. The treasury balance also includes approximately $1.2 million in funds set aside for specific projects. Year-to-date expenditures as of June 30th are 37% of the amount appropriated for 2017. The revenue received year-to-date is 56%, so we are well within budget. If you have any financial questions, please do not hesitate to call our office, 354-7516. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that next week, well, actually, no, I'm sorry. At the end of the month, Dan Davis and I will be attending the Ohio Cemetery Association meeting in Highland Heights. It's the first time since I've been in office that it's this side of Columbus, so we're very excited.
Good.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Connie, what do you got?
I had a call this morning, but that's all, and I took care of it.
Okay. I've had just a few calls on questions on things, various things around the township, road projects,
Right.
zoning projects, other different things. Department reports, administration, Mrs. Mitchell.
I'd just like to give everyone an update, if you haven't already been made aware, of the water line project that is going on through the City of Painesville's Utility Department on Auburn Road, essentially between Concord Hamden Road and Cryle. This is an upgrade from their 10-inch water line to the 16-inch volume water line. So that will begin essentially, they're doing some staging work this week, but the bulk of the work will begin next week. We recognize this is going to be yet another inconvenience, and we do apologize. This is a project that was put on by the City of Painesville. Again, their utilities department, as much as we would have liked to have seen that done sooner, and last year it wasn't within our control to have that done, so it is being done now. So we ask for your patience during this time. There are some signs posted to indicate detours. They will be limited, and again, limited during the day, but people will be able to pass through. So any other information, there's a flyer on our website, and again, I just happened to pass through today, and the detour signs are up. So just again, ask for your patience, and of course, safety first for the workers there. I just also point out that I'm attending a leadership seminar with the Ohio Township Association next Friday in Columbus.
And I would follow up on Kathy's comments and let everybody at home know that we're aware that the optics are bad, and let's just be blunt, the frustration of watching a brand new road get torn up less than a year after it was put in is shared by this body, these elected officials. There was a huge effort last year while the road project was going on to get Painesville in the ring on it and to get them to move forward with that project before that was done so that it could all be done as one project. They were unable to for a variety of reasons. And then when the final design was done, the county engineer insisted that the water line not be run through the right-of-way alongside the road, but actually be run through the road. So the answer is yes, we are tearing up a brand new road. And we're quite aware of how that looks and how that looks in terms of government. And the these trustees, anybody that sees it and comments can know that we share those frustrations on all of that. But luckily, that should only be a 30-day project and only involve lane closure on one side of the road for part of each day. So. Fire Department, Chief Sabo.
Good evening, everyone.
How we doing?
We're doing good. So to report on our run volume for the month of June, we had 242 incidents, taking us to 1,237 through June 30th of this year, which is a 16% increase over where we were in 2016. In the month of June, we had a few spills that we responded to, 15 medical alarms, 49 basic rescues, 4 outdoor fires, 4 CO alarms, an odor check. We had 1 structure fire. We had 2 calls for wires down, 17 fire alarms. These are both commercial and residential. 2 vehicle fires, 28 agency assists, 15 motor vehicle crashes, 83 paramedic rescues, and 17 public assists. Our Fire Prevention Bureau has been busy this month with 9 plan reviews for new construction, 30 annual inspections, 12 follow-up inspections, 1 special inspection event, 28 fire protection system testing, 1 public education event at the Painesville Assembly of God. We also participated with their annual car show, so that was fun. And along with Goddard School, their open house festival. So for the month of June, we want to remind everyone about heat stress. We're getting into the midsummer highs in temperature. So the fire department wants to remind everyone to take precautions to avoid any heat-related problems, and make sure you stay hydrated and wear loose fit clothing and do exercising or heavy work jobs at the cooler times when it's more comfortable to do that. Take several breaks and work with someone, because it's more fun that way, and it allows you to keep an eye on each other. So enjoy the warm weather. It's just months away is the white stuff. So
You did have
you're
to say
welcome,
that.
Frank.
Thanks, Chief. Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, Chief. Service Department, Frank Kraska. Man fixing the roads.
Good evening, everybody,
Good evening.
including the wide array of guests that we have this evening. Hello, everybody. The Service Department during June coordinated with Industrial Surface Sealer of Cleveland, Ohio to complete restoration of our tennis courts and basketball court at Concord Hills Park, located on Hoos Road. Meanwhile, the Service Department teamed up with Mitchell Construction Paving Company to repair and resurface 1,200 lineal feet of walking paths also located in Concord Hills Park. These improvements raise the level of park appeal and will promote continued activity and gathering place for years to come. During June, we began an annual maintenance program crack sealing various roads throughout the township. We installed 3 more bioretention islands on Hobby Horse, Canterwood Trail, and Lambton Court, and began concrete replacement on Hunting Lake Drive. In July, concrete work will continue on Hunting Lake Drive and transition to Buckboard Lane in Carriage Hills later in the month. And we have also subcontracted with Pacheco Concrete to provide additional road repairs on Tiffany Drive as well. We also want to give residents a heads up that on or about July 10th, 2017, that Carvo Paving will begin to repair and resurface the following roads: Little Mountain Country Club Subdivision, Hobby Horse Subdivision, Lambton Court. Motorists may encounter delays and should use caution while traveling in the active work zones. Please contact our Service Department for additional details on these projects or any other concerns that anyone may have at 440-350-3225 or 350-3226. Along with that, we've done a lot of other activities,
Boy, have
too numerous to mention.
Right.
Great job. Guys, you did a great
Thank
job.
you.
this summer.
Have a good
You really
evening.
are.
Thanks.
Thanks, Frank. Zoning Department. Heather.
Good evening. Okay. So for the month of June, the zoning department processed 50 zoning permit applications and collected about $12,000 in fees. 13 permits were for decks, 9 were for fences, 9 for single-family dwellings, 8 for pools, and there was also 1 permit was issued for the construction of the new Discount Drug Mart, which many of you have probably seen the article that was in the News Herald and we posted on social media. That's going to be located on Cryle Road, south of the new Capitol Park, south of the new portion of Capitol Parkway. Year to date, the office has processed 216 zoning permit applications, of which 48 were for single-family dwellings. Also, in the month of June, our Board of Zoning Appeals heard 1 variance request and 1 conditional use permit request for an outdoor dining for the new Pizza Roto that's going to be located at the Cryle Crossing Retail Center, which is the same area where the Starbucks is located. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
That's it.
I saw that sign is up.
Yep,
Pizza Roto.
Pizza Roto.
Big
Yep.
sign up this evening. Always eager, Recreation Department. Deborah Asker, please, don't let me slow,
Recreation.
don't let me hold you back.
Here we go. Well, your Concord Township Recreation Department extends a warm invitation to our residents and guests to enjoy the lively and entertaining programs we have planned for you this summer. This afternoon, our 55-plus group gathered to continue celebrating Americans' independence with our 5th of July party. The Flashbacks Band performed our favorite tunes from yesteryear, and our guests feasted on traditional picnic fare. Special thanks to our friends from the Painesville area for joining us. It was good to celebrate together again. Our next 55 group gathering will be in 2 weeks, when the word of the day will be bingo. So gather up your lucky troll dolls and head on over to the community center for a rollicking good time with friends. The fun begins Wednesday, July 19th at 1:30 p.m. Call the Recreation Department to reserve your spot. July is a great month to be outdoors and check out the newly renovated Concord Hills Park that Frank was talking about just a minute ago. Sign up for tennis camp on the freshly painted courts, running July 10th through 14th and July 24th through the 28th. All ages and experience levels are welcome. And then de-stress and relax at our Nature's Way journaling class on July 12th, and send the kids to the Campfire Treats cooking class on July 19th. Classes are at the Concord Community Center and seats are still available. Sign up at concordtwp.com, click the registration and recreation link, or call us for assistance. And thanks to everybody who's attended one of our free concerts at the gazebo at Town Hall this summer. Our series continues every Thursday through August 3rd. Tomorrow evening, July 6th, In Cahoots covers your favorite rock songs through the years. On July 13th, the Primetime Big Band swings with its 18-piece orchestra. On July 20th, the Big Five Show classically rocks the gazebo with music from the 60s and 70s. And on July 27th, the Underworld Blues Band will take you on a soulful musical journey. And we added another concert at the end of our series. The 7:30 Club Band pays tribute to today's top hits on August 3rd. All concerts are on Thursday evenings. They begin at 7 p.m. at the gazebo at Town Hall. This summer, our vendors include East Coast Custard and Kettle Corn, and new this year, we have Virgil's Dog House serving up grilled hot dogs, hamburgers, and fries. And as always, if a concert is canceled due to inclement weather, we'll post it on the township's Facebook page by 6 p.m. that evening, and also post signs at the gazebo. So be sure to like us on Facebook at Concord Township, Lake County, Ohio, to keep up with concert information as well as other township news and interesting local briefs. And I'm excited to announce the new seed library at the community center. A seed library is a repository of a variety of flower and vegetable seeds that are available for anyone to use. So simply stop by the community center and take the seeds that interest you. We're grateful to the Metro Public Library, who has generously provided this new and innovative service to our residents. And lastly, save the date of August 12th for a full day of celebrating Concord Township with your family and friends. Check out the sensational schedule of events for Concord Community Day on our website. Our community-wide celebration includes the annual 5K run, the fire department's pancake breakfast, a wiffle ball home run derby, Kids World with giant inflatables and games, our beloved frog jump contest, our traditional community parade, a variety of food trucks, live music throughout the day, and Uncorked is back, with beer, wine, our legendary Chinese raffle, and music by Sumrata. Guests can also enjoy tethered hot air balloon rides throughout the evening. So be a part of Community Day. Be in the parade. Take your best shot at the Wiffle Ball Derby. Nominate someone for Citizen of the Year. Apply for a Community Day scholarship. All of these forms and more information are available on our website. For more information on any class or event, please visit concordtwp.com excuse me, or call the Recreation Department directly at 440-639-4650. Thank you.
Thank you.
Concord Law Enforcement Report. Sergeant Harster, come on down.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
For the month of June, the Sheriff's Office handled in Concord Township 1,475 total calls for service. We had 6 injury accidents, 11 property damage accidents. We had adult male arrests for domestic violence, 2 for OVI and child endangering. We had 210 crime prevention cards opened with 36 citations issued, 132 written warnings issued, all traffic offenses, 3 driving under suspension cases, and 2 OVI cases. During the month, we had on Ravenna Road a breaking and entering, a curfew violation on Doncaster Court. We had drug offenses on Auburn Road, Morley Road, and Coleridge Road. For thefts, we had 2 theft cases on Morley Road, 1 on Hoos Road, 1 on North Point Court, 1 on Johnny Cake Ridge, 2 on Deer Haven Drive, 1 on Mercy Court, 1 on Spear Road, 1 on Summerwood Drive, also a theft on Mountain Park. We had a threats report on Ridgeview Trail and also a threats report on Oak Ridge Drive. We had 2 vandalism cases on Tammany Court, vandalisms on Southampton, Browning Court, Wellesley Boulevard, and Tanglewood Trail. That's it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to the audience portion. If we could have anyone that wants to speak, remember to come up, state your name, and where you're from, and then I would ask that, keep your comments to a reasonable time allotment, 4-minute period or so. I'll let everybody go after it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Hope everybody had a good 4th. I took a few hours out over the weekend.
Excuse me, Mr. Patterson.
Oh,
You could-
I'm Bob Patterson, 10940 Girdle Road. Sorry about that. I think I have good news tonight, real good news. I researched the Ohio Revised Code and looked at section 715.72, which I have a brief summary of here. It's a new issue that came out September 11th, 2016. It addressed the shortcomings in the previous Ohio Revised Code JED, Joint Economic Development District issues. We've been talking about this for over 2 months now. This is good news. This is really good news. You were right on the income taxes. You can charge businesses and individuals living in the district with an income tax not to exceed Painesville's income tax rate. You already knew that.
No, it's actually, well, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Oh, go ahead. What
Nope,
were you gonna-
nope, go ahead.
Well, my understanding it's 1.75% right now, and that's agreed upon between you and Painesville in the JED agreement. Okay? The other good news is that throughout the entire, it's called, 71572 is called the Alternative Procedures and Requirements for Creating a Joint Economic Development District. It's really slimmed down from the other 2 entries in the Ohio Revised Code that were really hard to follow. So this is a lot easier to understand. But they talk about the contract, your agreement with Painesville over and over in section after section. That is a stark difference than what Mr. Malcheski told me, that the Ohio Revised Code overrides your agreement. So the good news is it doesn't override your agreement anymore. As of September 11, 2016, you are in Mint City. You got a nice positive cash flow coming in from that joint economic district, over $1 million a year. So you are really doing well, and I applaud you for that. I think it's great. Well, if you look at the contract, if you look at the JET agreement, they constantly go back to your contract. So I got an excerpt here from your contract with Painesville, where you share the revenue coming in. You got 75% going to Concord, 25% going to Painesville. And they can spend it basically any way they want according to the agreement. What I pointed out to you last year, toward the end of the year after we got hit with that perpetual 0.3 of a mil levy increase for roads, that Paul said you had to do that because you can't spend the money outside of the JED. That's no longer true. Now you can spend the money according to your JED agreement. Let me just read it to you here so we're all in full understanding of it. The revenues so paid or credited to the township shall be used by the township to encourage, promote economic development, including but not limited to maintaining and improving the infrastructure of facilities of the township. Not the JED, the township, including paying debt, which you're doing, charges related thereto, providing safety and health services within the township, not the JED, the township, providing urban development planning, counseling, financing services for the township, and I like whoever wrote this. They did a good job. Mike, was that you?
I've contributed to it.
And for the district, if agreed to by the township. So you don't even have to do anything unless you agree to it. That's great. And generally improving the environment for those working and residing in the township or the district, and for other purposes as permitted by law. Blank check. Such revenues will be entered into township's general revenue fund and may be subsequently be distributed by the Board of Trustees as prescribed above. So they're even telling you, put the money in your general fund. Spend it like you want to spend it for the benefit of Concord citizens. That's great. That's good news. I think everybody here will agree. It's not Nexus. Nexus isn't even mentioned. I get kind of excited when I think about my tax dollars and tax dollars of the JED and what they're being spent on, and how my trustees, I understand the old JED or Ohio Revised Code might have forced you to pass that 0.3 of a mil levy on Concordians, but you don't have to do that anymore. You can now spend that money anywhere in Concord, on any roads, on any projects you want. Mike, you did a great job. Chris, you had some comments.
No, I'm going to let everybody go through everything and then roll through it.
I don't know if they're going to be talking about this. If you had a comment on this.
No, I'll get to it at the end. I want to move through this all very efficiently. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Maybe put it over here. Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks. Hi, Vanessa Pesic, 11705 Cali Court in Concord. And Chris, you mentioned in the parking lot on the way in that it looks like you plan to rescind the current zoning text and replace it with something else. So thank you. The existing zoning text was quite problematic for a lot of reasons. I saw that original zoning text a week before the zoning commission was to hold their public hearing, and sent out an email describing a lot of the concerns with the words, not with the pretty pictures or anything, but with the words. A lot of people attended then the trustee meeting that was held 2 weeks ago. In the meeting, you were very concerned with what the input that the residents had. and that you weren't comfortable with the density and some other things like that. But the problem that I had with that is that you approved the master plan in 2016, which is the picture with all the little buildings and retail and all of that. And in 2015, you put out a request for proposal for people to build on the existing 73-acre residential density of 6 to 8 townhomes per acre. And no developer would take it. They basically said there's not enough density, there are not enough people in the area. And that was confirmed by the zoning inspector. So you had to revise the area, make it larger, significantly increase density, and then you put out the same request for proposal, asking developers to come in this May. It was submitted in May. The deadline is tomorrow per the website. Now the citizens can't easily get to that RFP because it's password protected. So you have to find another way in order to get into that text in order to even get to see what that RFP is. But the deadline's tomorrow. And in that RFP, you included the zoning text and said that, let's see, what is approved zoning overlay district, parenthesis, effective summer 2017. Those are the exact words. And so if you didn't think it was a good idea, or like Paul said, he was very concerned with the acreage, it seems unusual that you would put it into an RFP where you're requesting people to bid on a project given certain dimensions and then do a switcheroo on them after their part of their initial proposals are due, which is tomorrow. So there are additional statements that were made that I hope that you'll be able to correct for the new zoning that you're going to put in place. You said that there was a limit, but in fact there really wasn't a limit on the number of residential homes, because it used to be 30% of the 30% of the area could only be used for resident only, but it also allowed residential above the other retail and commercial space. So I hope that you will in fact have a limit. You said that commercial and retail must be built first. That actually is incorrect in the existing text. It says the commercial structure shall be built first or concurrently, so you can build it all together. And furthermore, that just means you build the box. That doesn't mean that any of them have to be occupied or generating revenue. They just have to be built, and they can be open storefronts, whereas the residences can be moved, all the residents can move in. The pretty picture called the master plan is 120 acres, but the overlay district map is 175 acres. So there is 55 acres that do not have a plan associated with them, which makes that all the more difficult when you're trying to assess whether or not it fits the master plan per the existing zoning words. It's supposed to fit with this plan, but there is no plan, so it's really difficult. It seems to me like that would be a developer's paradise, be able to do what they wanted with it, and maybe a citizen's nightmare. The zoning text is silent on how the housing units will be owned, whether or not they're apartments or condos. So there was a discussion, are they going to be rental? Are they apartments? Are they condos? I didn't see anything that would suggest one or the other in terms of how they will be owned. So it would be great if you could put something on that. And I would also like to bring your attention to the statement that you've been working on this for a decade. In the Auburn Cryle study that was a decade ago in 2016, there is an important fact in there that says, according to NOACA, Communities planning to use retail development as the focus of an economic development strategy would be better served by trying to sustain or attract industrial and office-based businesses. So I would hope that you would heed the advice from the plan that you had done a decade ago and not use the mixed-use retail district that uses retail as its first use, as well as entertainment and restaurants. And the commercial and office area in the master plan that was developed without community input, the commercial and office area is TBD Phase 7 plus. And in that whole area, there is no industrial. So I really hope that you'll take a really strong and careful look, realizing that the residents of Concord didn't come here for a high-density urban vision, but rather the semi-rural flavor, and that you will heed the 2004 comprehensive plan that says that that we should keep our commercial space commercial. Thank you.
Bent that metal.
He has the touch.
Yeah. Thank you. Denise Brewster, 7207 Alexander Drive. Even though I was not present at the last meeting, I submitted a letter expressing my concern about the citizens being heard through a survey. It doesn't appear that the trustees want to do that. My concern is that we're going to get into a situation that even though we're having some dialogue here, we're few citizens showing up at a meeting, but there's going to be a lot more citizens out there. I just left a meeting where there were 10 people, and they represent a lot of different constituencies in the township, and they're quite alarmed. And they will be at the zoning meeting coming up. But I hate to see this head into some of the past history that we have shared in the township, going in the way of referendums, trustee races that are hot and heavily contested. Both are coming up if we aren't going to keep an open ear to what's going on. Right now, upon arriving, I heard that there are going to be some considerations for some changes in some of the thinking, and we're more than willing to wait to see what those are. But right now, I'm a little concerned because in the newspaper, not one day, but 2 days, there were already articles talking about these development proposals. But what was left out, unfortunately, was anything to do with residential. It seems to be the best kept secret. And now that people know about it, I feel like we need clarification. As Vanessa said, it's not well defined. I worry about even going with the concept of anything that's residential on the heels of the development that Quail Hollow is going to continue to build out. I think we said 300 homes, which is, I don't know if those figures are right, but you can see it down off Cryle. And then there's also a big development going in that's pretty, heavy density off of Girdle near Orchard, from what I heard from the last meeting, if that's correct. But the fact is that the east end of the township is not well developed, and it's not built out, let's put it like that, not the way the western end is. And I just feel that there's enough residential capacity there to do many things, but the only commercial and light industrial area that we have is the area we've talked about for years. And Connie and I go way back, and I do know that we always thought of that area as being our commercial area. While I was in Willoughby today looking at the Dream House, I went to lunch in Willoughby, and I decided to go past the Knez development where it used to be on the tour of the Dream House, and they're the ones that have the commercial below and the residential up above. And I looked very carefully, and I saw one that was occupied. I saw 2 for sale signs, so available, one dark and one that looked empty, and one that was for the Dream House office. That didn't look like it was occupied. The residents up above looked like they were occupied, but I'm concerned that we're going to have empty storefronts if that's what we're trying to sell. And this is downtown Willoughby on a very small scale, and it's empty. So I just want that as a consideration. All right. As far as, you know, some of the things that are in the rendering or the conceptual drawing, I think you talked about, or maybe Paul did, about the hospital. It was a surprise that they weren't going to generate any taxes or any type of income that you thought. It was going to create more of a tax burden. But, you know, anything medical, like medical offices, I'm not sure where that goes, but auxiliary, when you look at hospitals, there's usually medical offices around. I would think if doctors have medical offices, that they do have to pay taxes and could well afford to do so. The educational nonprofit, if there's something educational going in there, that's not going to generate taxes either. And anything we create recreationally, it's nice to have, but who's going to pay for it and who's going to maintain it? So I don't object to these things. I just want the thought to go into what's going to generate taxes and lighten our burden as residents. Because as you said, the majority of us, I'm retired now. And there's a lot of us out there. What did we say, 50-some percent? 60%? It's a lot. And they're going to continue to grow. And as you said, Chris, there's a lot of people who would like to stay here, but if they can't stay here, why is that? Let's answer the question and figure out how we can fix that.
Taxes are too high.
Yeah, taxes are high. I'm going to look at, you know, you get torn when you have to support the school district, but then that increases your taxes too on a fixed income. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Audience. Going once, going twice.
Sorry. Chris Lazuka, 8130 North Orchard Road. I'll be very brief because I think a lot of my personal sentiment has already been expressed in a lot of the concerns raised, specifically about the high-density housing. But I guess I was also just very curious about how this RFP was released when, I guess, under the guise of the current zoning proposal, when you've stated that you have issues with the current zoning. So it just struck me when I saw that article in the Herald that this RFP had been launched. And I was just kind of thinking, how are developers going to bid on something that could very much change potentially, I guess, based on our conversations that we were having. So that's really the only point that I wanted to add that hasn't already been stated. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate everyone's comments, and what I wanted to do was kind of get through everybody's comments and questions, sort of jot them down, and then sort of just address them in a coherent fashion versus the last meeting, which I thought was like a WWF free-for-all. And the chairman is allowed to run the meeting however he likes,
Right,
and
that's true.
and I didn't think that that served the public very well in terms of the back and forth. So I thought it'd be good to just sort of get it all out there and then comment. Do you anything you want to talk about before I dive into this?
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet. I have a couple things, but later.
I'll just kind of run in order in an overall sense. Bob, on your comments on ORC, you're right. It's the changes to the JED language in ORC. We were very concerned as townships in terms of when that legislation was working its way through the legislature. It early on was looking very ugly in terms of how it would set up for townships in terms of placing limitations and other things on us. But instead, the final product actually was very good in terms of defining certain abilities that were within the gray area that existed previously in the text. I think when Paul was referring to nexus, the word nexus is not in that's the Paul Malczewski legal scholar talking. And under the old text of JED, there were some limitations on how townships were supposed to spend that money in terms of for the JED district within the context of supporting the purpose of economic development. And Mike can talk to this a little bit, which was we had been operating the JED and trying to be very conservative because there is literally no case law on JEDs, and I don't believe there are any auditor opinions on JEDs, nor were there any Attorney General directives. So everybody that had a JED was operating in a gray nebulous area in terms of how you should approach your expenditures and how you should approach your agreement. Now, we tried to, when we drafted our JED agreement with the City of Painesville, we tried to very clearly spell out what the duties would be and how that agreement and contract would be executed on as it went through the years. So when Paul would talk about nexus, not to put words in his mouth because he's not here, but what he was referring to was under the old structure, we felt we should be very conservative in how we approached how dollars were spent in the event that down the road there was a lawsuit or there was an auditor opinion or something along that line that came out of someplace else in another JED, because there are a lot of them around the state. So if something like that happened and we had spent money on something, let's say, something crazy like, we bought a bunch of parkland or something, and then the state came back and said, well, now you've got to reverse all that financially because now there's case law. So we never wanted to be in a spot where we could get caught, with a situation where we would suddenly have to now figure out a way to undo something. So the thought process was the JED is a great tool to support services and roads in the future for those types of things, so that those revenues are generated a 1.75% rate, which is less than the City of Painesville, part of what we negotiated in the contract. Painesville's current rate is 2%, I believe. So the idea was, that's what, when Paul talks about nexus, that's what he's talking about. Like, if you're going to fix roads, we would fix roads that would directly affect the commercial corridor, say, and then use other dollars for neighborhood streets versus township roads over there, like, say, Discovery Lane or something, Wellness Way, those types of things. So you're right. None of the new language now, they've broadened that as of last fall, where we've got a little bit more definition in how we can spend those dollars. And you also correctly point out that we are currently using those dollars, earmarking those dollars to finish paying for the road project, the Capitol Parkway extension, and that entire interchange. We expect that to be the case for about another 40 months, roughly, 3.5 years.
Depends on how much they drew in the last 6 months.
Right, it depends. So we have, as the final invoices come in from ODOT on that project and whatnot, so we're projecting 40 months, maybe only be 30. So those dollars are tied up right now. The portion that Concord currently gets on an annual basis as part of that is a little over $600,000. We've added some additional businesses that have asked to join the JED in terms of the new skilled nursing facility and now the new assisted living facility and some other properties that have now joined into the JED. So our expectation is those numbers will improve with additional revenue streams and allow us to pay all that off quicker so that we can dedicate those dollars elsewhere. When it comes to the road levy, that's a challenging thing when you start to look at the budget and you start to look at what Frank and his guys do in terms of road repair and projects. The road levy had been 1.7 mils since 1992. And the reality is if we wanted to continue to do projects, at least on the level that we're at least accustomed to, that we were going to have to look at increasing that slightly. So what we did was we proposed and placed on the ballot for the people to vote on a 1.7 mil renewal with a 0.3 increase. The 1.7 mil did preserve, the renewal of that portion of it did preserve the homestead exemption. So that was not lost, which, as you know, ORC, that they changed that in the previous CASIC budget, so that if they weren't renewals, that protection went away from homeowners. So we preserved that. So the difference, just to give you a little bit of an example, the difference between the 1.7 with the new 0.3 added on versus doing a 1.7 replacement was $1. Because we preserved most of the renewal, the difference between a renewal with a 0.3 was like $60 and change per 100,000, and a replacement was $59 and change. So it was very negligible in terms of the difference. So the reasoning behind that was the millage hadn't changed since 1992. We have far more lane miles in Concord Township than we ever have had. And that, and realize we understand that it's a balance, is that in an ideal world, in order to maintain the roads the way everybody would like us to in terms of, and we get the calls and the emails, everybody wants their street done right now, every few years, do this. Concord would need, a 6 mil levy in order to do that kind of, re-road, resurfacing constantly. And that's just not an economic reality to place that on residents. So we try to get by. We're like the little Dutch boy with his fingers in the dike, always going around. Every year, Frank does an analysis of all the township roads, and he ranks them and determines which ones are in the most need of repair. And that was a process we set in place when Frank got here, because we felt that was the most egalitarian way to go about it. That everybody believes their road is the one that's worse and needs to be replaced, but let somebody else with an unbiased eye look at all the roads, rank them, and do an analysis, and then each year we would do the worst roads and do repairs where we could in the worst. And so that list changes every year. So that's been our process.
Is Capitol Parkway a county road or a state road?
Capitol Parkway is a township road.
Capitol Parkway is a township?
Capitol Parkway has always been a township road. So wait, I don't want to get into a big back and forth. So part of our process on that is our commercial district, and our belief is that down the road, and that's a good example. Capitol Parkway and Discovery Lane have always been township roads since Swagelock dedicated them and handed them over a long time ago. Our belief is that those JED dollars can go to fix roads like that in our commercial district, so that it doesn't become, that's not a burden on our homeowners. So that's an example of nexus. So hopefully that answers a lot of those questions.
But you're free and clear now to spend the funds anywhere you see fit,
So,
right?
we are able to put that money in the general fund and spend it on township needs, township-wide. Absolutely.
After the road.
Once the road has been paid, the financing on that has been taken care of, and so somewhere down the road in 3 or 4 years, that will be the
But
case.
Chris, that's good.
Bob, I'm not doing debate, because the last meeting was like insane back and forth, and everybody jumping in and back and forth. Let you come up, and I'm trying to answer everybody's, just, let's have some decorum in order. So, Vanessa, Cali Court. You're right. In 2015, the RFP in 2015 that was done didn't speak to housing per se. It said, we're looking at an interest in terms of a mixed-use development. Developers, if there's anybody that might be interested, come forward. As part of that entire RFP process, we went and revisited with our consultants, Risinger & Associates, who will be at the next zoning meeting to give a presentation so that there can be, I think it's important that there be some clarity in terms of what's real and what's not in terms of what's being conceptualized, proposed, etc. I would stress that the zoning that will be brought up and is being brought up is an addition to the existing commercial zoning, light industrial, etc. This would be what they call an overlay district. It does not change the underlying commercial zoning and allows for some wider variety of uses within a commercial context. So it's not a matter of hijacking valuable commercial land, because I agree with the statements that were made here this evening. Communities have to have balance in order to have long-term sustainability. This is something that I have said forever. And the challenge for communities is how those development patterns are changing and to stay on top of it. Since the 1960s, Concord Township believed that whole corridor was, best suited was industrial uses. Well, I would dare say, to Denise's point, I don't think anybody moved here for industrial. Now, I guess maybe it was Vanessa's point. Nobody moved to Concord saying, I can't wait to get some of that industrial. We have some light industrial uses in that corridor, Denoratech being one, Pressure Technologies, Ranpak, great company, doing great business in terms of packaging. But that is in a changing economy, that is a different use that we're not seeing a lot of heavy action on in terms of industrial. I would point out that just a few years ago, we had an industrial user come in here and want to locate. First, they approached us about locating on Cryle Road, and we told them absolutely not.
Right.
And then they approached the township and asked to locate in the industrial park, and their business is concrete stamping. So the township denied their ability to locate here, and I would dare say there's nobody in this room that thinks concrete stamping is something that fits Concord. And the township said no to that. And the township gets approached on different businesses all the time, and a lot of them are just not a fit. So we have always sort of steadfast defended the fabric of what this community is, because dare I say, somebody gone and built a concrete stamping plant on Cryle Road or on Capitol Parkway, there would not be many happy people here. But I also think it's interesting that when that was all going on in public meetings and public hearings, nobody showed up about it.
What is concrete stamping?
So they make prefabricated concrete materials. So that business actually ended up now locating in Mentor, in one of their heavy industrial areas. So when we talk about the commercial corridor as a whole, it's important to note, I think, several things. One, it's been zoned commercial since the 1960s. It has slowly developed and is continuing to develop out and will continue to develop out. And I think everybody here acknowledges that. What we believe, this board believes, is that as it develops out, we have one opportunity to get it right in terms of how it's going to look, how people that live in Concord will go through that area, and what those uses will be, and how it will look, and how it's shaped. And our belief is that that's why for the last few years we have been refining zoning, tightening it up, eliminating uses, streamlining the text so that we can make sure that that corridor, the zoning in there fits Concord and what most people in Concord want that commercial district to look like. Prior to a lot of these changes, you could have had a lot of disjointed uses. And that's really the difference between being hands-on and proactive and sort of hands-off and reactive. If you're hands-off and you're reactive, you're gonna end up with a commercial area that looks like Vine Street. It's going to be disjointed uses, hodgepodge of various developments of various ilk, quality, etc. And I don't think anybody in Concord wants that. And the part of the process for us in the last 10 years, as we've worked through corridor studies, traffic studies, comprehensive plan changes, is how do we make sure that what happens over there is something that A, fits Concord, B, provides some level of service to existing residents now, things that they are looking for. And we get asked for a lot of stuff all the time. Starbucks is a great example. Got asked for that forever. Can we get a Starbucks? And drugstore. The request for drugstores goes way, way back. I mean, a lot. Yeah. And we worked to bring that in, to bring in a drugstore. And we met with all of them. And only Drug Mart said they wanted to be in Concord, which was great. And they're a great local company, and we're glad to have them. And we're thrilled that they're starting on their project. But I would point out the long-term nature of the planning that we're doing and the things that are being discussed. The first time we had a meeting with Drug Mart to talk about Concord was probably, I'm going to say 7 years ago. 7 years ago. It took that long for that, between when we had our initial meeting, they showed interest, they looked at sites, they put it in their building plan, they moved forward, and that's just a drugstore. Yeah. So everything that we're talking about, I don't want folks at home to think, my God, what's happening? There's nobody spitting, there's nobody turning dirt tomorrow. There's no great, development, immediacy. These are long-term concepts and plans that we are trying to put in place. And it's important, I think, to know what could be versus, if we did nothing, you sat back and you just let it all happen on its own without any township input, you would end up with a lot of disjoint uses that I don't think anybody would be happy with. And I'll let you, I've been filibustering, okay. And I don't mean to.
Well, and a request for proposal doesn't mean that the proposal will be accepted as it's presented. There's a lot of tweaking that goes on in something like that. Many, many meetings, and that's why it takes so long to get something that's acceptable.
Chris, can I?
Correct. So part of that process is that the RFP process was to put that out and see what interest there may be in a mixed-use type development, which is a commercial development.
Right.
Any other uses that may not necessarily be commercial in their sole nature are in a mixed-use development are enriching. So, for example, we have said that yes, we are willing to consider the idea, and I want to stress the words "we are willing to consider."
Yes.
Because that gets spun out of they are doing. Well, no. We are willing to consider the idea of putting the community center, which is already in that corridor, and which was purchased a long time ago as a temporary facility.
Yes.
That we are willing to consider that as part of this development, a new community center. Now, we're not talking about big Taj Mahal rec halls that are, that are going to be on the township dime and, blowing up staff and having all kinds of new staff and everything. And we have an existing rec center. We would entertain the idea of selling that and then moving and creating a new rec center in our community center in this mix. If we had if down the road we got a proposal that made sense for the township. And I'll be honest with you, some of the, Denise, I think you really honed in on a couple of important points, which is, what's been thought through. I will tell you, I don't want to, I've seen what other communities have done with things like community centers and rec centers and how they have failed in terms of how they're either, how they're projected, designed, and whatnot. Our vision is that we wouldn't do that unless it was with a partnership with other entities, be it and I loathe to name other entities because then it becomes, he said it's going to be this. There are organizations in the county, in the area, that run recreational facilities very well. There's those types of possibilities that we could partner with, potentially partner with an educational entity, those kinds of things that are being done in other places, being done very successfully, so that the burden is not on the township financially in terms of staffing, because we're not experts on running a rec center, per se. So any enhanced facility, we would want partners that would come to the table and be a part of that, so that it's not all on Concord, and that there are shared costs, and there are limits to what those costs are for the township. Again, being very conservative. And I'll tell you, that's the type of thing that we do get asked about a lot by a lot of people. They find our facilities inadequate. I think they're fine, but everybody's got their own needs. And when we talk about stuff like that, again, it's all conceptual. So, there's in the town center master plan, of which there's been some pictures have been moved around. It's purely conceptual on what that could be. You're right, Vanessa. They're pretty pictures. That's all they are. Because the only thing we're talking about right now is zoning text. And we're trying to make sure that we, A, get it right, and B, it fits what everybody in the community wants. Now listen, I know there's people in this room that don't want any of it, but there are a lot of people that reach out to us that do want it. And so obviously our job is to balance all that input that's coming in. Denise, you ask about, the people that can't stay here or want to stay here but have nowhere to go. Primarily that's a function of housing stock. And that is, as boomers especially have gotten to a certain age, they would like to downsize, but they don't. The housing stock that boomers are looking for doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in Concord, it doesn't exist in Lake County, and anywhere. And when you look at studies now where boomers want to live, and listen, there might be people in this room that go, I don't want to live there. Well, that's fine, but as overall, there are boomers that do want to live in these types of settings. And the market research bears that out. So part of the, we get all the time, people say, well, we have to leave Concord because we want to downsize, but there's no place for us to go. We don't like what's available in terms of condos or otherwise, and so we're gonna move elsewhere. There have been Concord residents that have moved to Tremont. There have been folks that have moved to Ohio City. They're looking for something different. Now, I'm not in any way suggesting that those things, that we're looking to replicate Ohio City and Concord. That's foolish. But there are a lot of folks that would like to stay that are looking for those walkable type communities within a commercial setting that allows them to spend 6 months in Florida, 6 months here, and when they're here, they don't even have to get their car out most of the week. They can walk down the street to a coffee shop, they can walk to a restaurant. There are those types of uses, and those are commercial uses. But what else do we know about those types of uses? When companies now are looking to locate places, they are looking for that same exact environment for their businesses. Long gone are the days where companies are looking to locate in the middle of nowhere out in a cornfield. They all want to be in where there are services for their employees, and there's an ability to attract and retain their employees and their employee base. And what's that, and that base is in more and more so is millennials is the largest economic group. So we are trying to build a commercial district that will attract companies. It will allow boomers that are here now, folks that are in Concord, that want to stay in Concord and are looking for that, to be able to stay. We're looking for amenities for our residents that are looking for services and amenities that are low impact, non-big box in nature. I'll say it again, everybody says it, we don't want to be Menor, we're not becoming Menor. Nothing that we are proposing is even remotely like Mentor. So that's the gist of where we've been going for a decade in terms of planning. So what you're seeing between the RFP and the zoning proposals is our moving that process forward, and now we're getting much closer. An RFP is out. We'll see what the interest is in terms of development, in terms of that area. I, for one, I think there is going to be interest from what I can tell. I think it's going to be extremely positive. And I tell folks, it's, from my perspective, it's, if you look at that area where Capitol Parkway is and over in Auburn area, it's going to develop. And it's either going to develop into something that we can all be proud of and enhances Concord, or it's just going to be, we could sit back and let things happen to us rather than taking control of the process and trying to drive what those uses may be.
Chris, can I address the chair?
No, I'm not doing a free-for-all. Let me get through all this. So that brings Denise, your question, and sort of ties into Bob about taxes. And for the record, we didn't ask for that change on the JED language, where it now was, you were able to, the income tax would apply to those living in a mixed-use development in a JED district. We were actually surprised by that language when it came out and was passed, because it had never been that way, and we hadn't planned on that. That said, the JED allows us to, any property and businesses within the JED district, and I stress this, only within the JED district. So it is designated properties. It's not the township as a whole. It is not 23.1 wonderful square miles of Concord Township. It is only those that have applied to and been entered into the JED where that income tax applies. And we've had this in place now for 8 years. And it's slowly grown. And from that, we've generated dollars that we use to help build the financial backbone for building the new interchange at Capitol Parkway, which opened up that whole area for commercial development. Because when we talk to commercial folks, the thing that whole area lacked and why it never got proper development in terms of business is because accessibility. And so we're using those JED revenues to pay for that road, which is exactly what the legislature had in mind for that type of use of those JED revenues. So when you ask about taxes and how does that burden distributed, if you create a commercial district that's within the JED where those businesses are generating that income tax and those businesses have now taken land that has very little property tax value to the township, and you create that value, the township is now capturing those revenue streams to help pay for those services. Bob likes to talk about how residences don't pay for themselves in terms of services, and he's right, they do not, which is part of the reason why the township has worked so hard to make sure that that commercial corridor can get moving and develop properly so that we can maximize those things, because we need to. We only have 8% of our township is zoned commercial.
Right.
So what we're proposing is in no way exclusive of our ability to generate those revenue streams and to be able to offset those taxes that our residents are paying. And as we said throughout the entire road project, not one penny of general revenue fund monies, i.e. your or your levy monies, went to that project. We paid for it all through JED revenue and from outside sources that we went out and got. We got ODOT to give us money. We got NOACA to give us money. We went out and hustled for those things and helped offset a great deal of the costs for that project. So we view that corridor as our opportunity to maximize the commercial revenue streams that can be generated for the community to offset the residential costs in the future. We are literally in the infancy of this process. The JED was started 8 years ago. The road is in place. We're making some zoning tweaks, and so we are literally in the infancy of that process. And the direction is all positive. And that's kind of what I want to focus on, is the positives, because they are many. And when we had our last meeting, there were lots of accusations and other things flying around about how, the trustees don't listen, or they haven't planned, and then we show all the evidence of how we've planned for this and that. We've done that study, and then it sort of shifts. We took the comments that came back from the Planning Commission. The County Planning Commission took the overlay district zoning, proposed language, and had their own debate on it. Vanessa was part of that. She is a public official on the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission voted 8-1 to approve the overlay district, with Vanessa the only no vote, but with a number of recommendations. And in light of those recommendations, and in light of the feedback that we were getting in the public meeting, and then of course there's still going to be public hearings, we made the decision that it would be best on the front end to, since it was already tabled previously, for us to go ahead and rescind that, make some changes, and we'll be voting on that later. So we will rescind what was out there previously, the resolution, which will cause the Zoning Commission on July 11th to permanently table that, and then we will be passing a new resolution with new language, and I will go over what's in that. And then the process will go back to the Planning Commission, the body on which Vanessa is a member, and we'll get their feedback. We felt that that was the most open and direct means of moving forward with the changes and allowing them to go through that process. Again, wanting to be positive, obviously, and wanting to also make clear that there's no nefarious, secret, and all these other wild accusations flying around. Everything is done above board in public meetings, and this is a public process in how we are doing it. So we will be doing that a little bit later. I think it will address a lot of the concerns that people have in terms of footprint and formula and some of the residential or the housing component of the overlay district. Again, not the underlying district, but the overlay. To answer just real quick at the end here, Chris's question about the RFP. The RFP went out stating that there would be zoning overlay put into place this summer. We still expect that to happen as part of this process, and as we go through and we formulate it now. So, developers know that that's, still a work in progress. And so we will work to finalize that this summer and then put it on the books. And it was a recommendation that came from our consultant, which was you need to put something in place that so that you're not saying to folks, hey, we promise down the road we'll go ahead and do this, but they're going to want to see, to your point, why would they bid on something if they can't know that it's already at least in the process. And so we agreed with that was an acceptable approach. So that's where we are. That's where we're going with all of this. I hope that answered everybody's questions in a sort of a macro sense.
Can I address this here, Chris?
I'll give you one question. One. So it doesn't become a free-for-all.
I'm not going to argue.
I just want to say that
Positive.
You've got a gem in the midst, and I think Deborah Esker is one of the best administrators of that town community center I've ever seen. She's helped me on a number of occasions. I've got a lot of business from advertising in the Concord Grapevine, which she made available to me, and I really appreciate her help and work. I think you've got a real gem there. And just real quick question. When I sat here listening to you articulate your answers to everybody, which I thought was good, the thing that struck me the most was in 2004, we got a community survey before we finalized the comprehensive plan. If you would only do that again, a lot of your problems and aggravation might go away, because the visualization I have of a Hudson or a walkabout that you're talking about makes me sick. I might be wrong. Might be 200 other people say that's a great idea, like you just said. But if you have a community involvement, a discussion with the community through a survey and public meetings, you get your answer.
Okay, thanks. So here's what I would just, to wrap all this up. I would say I don't know what's disgusting about downtown Chagrin Falls. And that is really the closest thing in terms of what we're trying to effectually do in terms of what would be part of the commercial district. I don't know how anyone would find, if you took downtown Chagrin Falls and you could rip it up, modernize it a little bit, and drop it on Capitol Parkway, how that would be offensive. You've lived here your whole life. Does that offend you?
No.
I guess the difference in that opinion is that if you don't take the proactive approach that we have, what you will end up with differently is what we've always had in that corridor in Concord, which is there's some good businesses there, but it's a hodgepodge. 84 lumber. You might end up with a Taco Bell on the corner, and all these other kinds of silly things. That's what you get when you're not proactive, when you don't have a vision and you don't move in that direction. And if you think, and I hear all the snickering in the audience, but I also know that there's plenty of folks that that will criticize every,
Yep.
business use that comes through. People criticize the Waffle House, okay? Listen, that Waffle House happened on Bob's watch. But that's an example where, okay, that's a PUD. So you would say to me, well, see, you're talking about grabbing, and trying to formulate, but we ended up with a Waffle House. Well, Quail Hollow is a PUD, a planned unit development. Part of that planned unit development was a small commercial district. And in that commercial district, the township has very limited ways in which we can't, the same zoning text that would allow us to get a Starbucks would also allow us to get a Waffle House. We don't get to pick and choose those types of things, but what we can do is things like in the PUD, what does that Waffle House look like? That's the nicest Waffle House in America in terms of its visual. I think
he's a Concord resident too.
He's out of the business. He's living in down south somewhere. But
he
again,
was.
the point is that we don't get to control all the uses, but we can try to shepherd them so that they're as best we can with what controls we are legally allowed to have,
Right.
so that you end up with a better end result. And really, at the end of the day, that's what this board is trying to do. And I think we have so many great things going on in Concord. I think that this just enhances it.
Yeah, I've lived here a long time. When we have we're approaching 20,000 population. When I came and became a trustee, our build-out number, if everything was built out the way it was zoned, and most of it was residential, of course, we would eventually have 40,000 residents. During my term, we have rezoned at least the east side and increased the lot sizes, and so now the build-out is 32,000. And it'll be a long, long time before we ever reach that, but we are moving in the right direction. And what we're trying to do is plan for the future, 10, 20 years down the road, and we're trying to do it right.
And I think that, Bob, you're right about Deborah. She's the best.
Yep,
First
she
of all,
is.
just to get back
That's
to your
true,
question.
that's true.
But it also, you're right, the estimated build-out for Concord Township is a max future population of somewhere around 32,000. We're at 20,000 now.
Yeah.
Concord is not going to, grow into this super dense metropolis. Nothing that we are proposing over at Capitol and Discovery is going to hurt the property values and affect the neighborhood of folks that live along Hermitage. If you live on Sherrill Drive and Kellogg Park, it's not going to affect your neighborhood. It's still going to be a great place. If you live on South Meadow, your neighborhood's going to be intact and a fantastic place to live. There's no changes that we're talking about here that are affecting all these different parts of Concord in terms of people's quality of life in their neighborhood. So I guess that's what I wanted to focus on positives, and that we do believe that we need to be proactive, and that we do need to provide some direction and some vision for the township, and we think we're doing that. And if people, with clear minds and honest hearts actually look at things without trying to create an incendiary environment, we can have a constructive process and end up with a final product that makes people proud and makes people want to be here and preserves our sustainability as a community for the long term. So.
Chris, I had two follow-up questions.
Can we do it after? Because I got to move this agenda forward. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I just had to do this.
I'm happy to sit down with you. And I would just also point that to anyone at home.
Right.
Please feel free to call Connie, myself, or Paul, or email us, or come up and visit with us. We can sit down. We've had some of those calls already. We encourage that. And if you want to know what we're thinking and how we're thinking it, we're extremely accessible, and we're happy to, come to your homeowners association meeting and talk, which we do frequently. We're happy to, heck, if you want us to just come over and sit down around your kitchen table, we're happy to do that. So I guess I'm gonna move it along here. There is no old business. There was a need for an approval of the June financial report, and if I had a motion to that end.
So moved.
I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have to do a letter of recognition. This is a very important letter. This is in recognition of Fire Chief Matthew Sabo. The Concord Township Board of Trustees and the Concord Township Fire Department wish to extend recognition to Fire Chief Matthew Sabo for his successful completion of the Ohio Fire Executive Program. The Ohio Fire Executive Program is designed to provide fire and emergency service officers with an educational experience focused on the effective development and use of executive leadership skills. Chief Sabo joined class number 15 of the Ohio Fire Executive Program in 2015. Over the course of 2 years, Chief Sabo committed his time to 200 hours of classes, wrote and submitted 8 assigned papers, read 50 assigned articles, delivered multiple 25-minute presentations, conducted an applied research project, prepared and submitted organizational evaluation for his home department, and devoted 400+ hours to out-of-class assignments. This while he also was our chief. It is the pleasure of this Concord Township Board of Trustees to recognize and recommend and commend Fire Chief Matthew Sabo for completion of this prestigious program. Signed, the Concord Township Board of Trustees. We're going to sign it for you right now. Come on up and get this. Say a few words about what you did. I know that this was a big deal for you.
Thank you.
Because you now finally, after all these years, get some free weekends, right? And there's not a fire and emergency in Concord Township. We couldn't be prouder of. If you want to say a few, just give a little,
Congratulations.
give folks at home a little bit about what that's all about and why it's important.
Well, first of all, thank you. I do appreciate the letter of recognition, and I'll certainly be sure to thank Deputy Chief Terriaco and Karen, because I'm sure they had a hand in this somehow, some way. So I'll be sure to thank them individually.
Hey, Ron, you know what they say, payback's
Yes, this was a long process, 2.5 years. I went back for my bachelor's degree in 2011 and finished that up in 2014, and then picked this program up in 2015. So my family, both at home and at the firehouse, have been extremely patient with me over the last several years. But what does this mean for the fire department? And I think that's the take home is the impact that this education will bring back to the fire department to develop it further into the future and meet the needs of our organization as we serve our residents in the most efficient and effective way possible. So this program gave me those tools to learn more about how I could improve as a leader of the Concord Fire Department and grow as an individual as well. So I certainly thank the trustees for this recognition, and hopefully there'll be more to follow. So thanks.
Good job.
you.
Very proud.
Yeah, right. Okay.
A raise, Bob. What do you want us to already give away all those tax dollars that you're up here complaining about? Come on. All right. So, as promised, I have before me.
Resolution.
We have to make a vote to rescind
Repeal.
Resolution 2017-15.
15.
No,
What?
no. The resolution is 27-15. You're rescinding
What was the number?
2017-10.
Dash
Dash
10.
10.
Okay, I'm sorry, yep. Make a note of that.
You want me to make the motion?
Yes, please.
All right. I move that we repeal existing resolution number 2017-10, which established section 21, the Innovative Site PD Overlay District under the Concord Township zoning resolution. And that's it.
And that also provides for all text and map amendments necessary there to
Yes.
be rescinded.
It's what it did, yeah.
I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'm going to sign that and hand it over to you.
Okay. Please note, I can't
There's
talk
two.
when I'm signing.
There's two. That's good. I'll handle the next.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to talk about changes.
Yep, I got all that.
Okay.
All right, so I will need you to make a motion as it relates to Resolution 2017-16. This is a resolution by the Board of Trustees of Concord Township, Ohio, of its intention to establish Section 21 of the Innovative Site PD Overlay District under the Concord Township zoning resolution and provide for all text and map amendments necessary thereto.
I so move.
And I will second. Now, before we do that, let me dive into the difference versus the original.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, this will go forward into, once it gets voted on, assuming it's voted on, this will then go to the the county planning commission, and the zoning commission will set a public hearing at a later date once the county planning commission is, actually they have to have it within a certain period of time. So
Right.
they're statutorily required to, what is it, 40 days, Mike?
Yes.
40 days. So the county planning commission will get and re-review the modifications, and then the zoning commission will, on their July 11th meeting, will not be addressing this other than to set the public hearing for a future date. So they won't actually be dealing with it at that point until they get back recommendations from the planning commission.
Right.
But they will, on July 11th, set a public hearing. And again, we made the decision that since it was tabled and there was time that we wanted to make some changes based on the recommendations of the county planning commission and public feedback, that we wanted to just sort of go through this process, this open process, and sort of start over again, if you will, with a bunch of changes, rather than going through and then having the trustees sort of drastically modify, which we would be legally entitled to do, which we can, but we thought it would be best to sort of start the process anew. So, what are the differences between the language that was just rescinded and then what's now here? The first is the scope of the overlay district. The original district was proposed to encompass approximately 175 acres. That has now been reduced to 107 acres. Second, building heights and number of stories. Maximum height was 60 feet and is now proposed to be regulated based on building type under section 21.07B on page 21.5. So depending on building type, it could be lower than 60. Residential density and location. There is currently a 30% restriction on the gross acreage of the IS/PD that may be used for housing. The new text now includes a limitation that no more than 10% of the 30% can be devoted to vertical multifamily housing, exclusive of townhomes, and not part of a mixed-use building. See section 21.07E2 on page 21.7. In addition, no more than 2 vertical multifamily buildings may be directly adjacent to one another. Again, same sections on page 21.6. And lastly, multifamily density is changed from no more than 40 dwelling units per acre to no more than 20 dwelling units per acre, under section 2107, 21.7. In addition, the revised text includes clearer minimum square footages for the dwelling units. Townhomes, a minimum of 2,000 square feet. A vertical multifamily building dwelling is 1,500 square feet with 2 to 3 bedrooms. So if someone has a loft condo, for example, that's going to be very large in size. That is, there's been a lot of wild rumors about Section 8 housing and all kinds of stuff. That's not this. The minimum housing size for Concord, for a house, a single-family house in Concord, is 1,200 square feet. And it's been that way for decades.
Yep.
So this is actually larger than what you actually have to build a house at in Concord. And then multifamily dwelling unit in a mixed-use building is 950 square feet. And again, this is a draft, and we will continue to gain feedback and work on it. And I would also point out that it's an example where the trustees differ from the County Planning Commission. When the language first came back on the original submittal to the county recommended that we slash these sizes dramatically, make them much smaller in terms of a minimum, and we reject that. I mean, that's an example of where we say, no, that's not what Concord is. It's larger units. And then live-work units were eliminated as a permitted use in the ISPD. It is unclear what the status would be of what the live-work unit should be if a business fails. So because the township does not want empty storefronts, we went ahead and eliminated that language. So those are sort of the changes of the new language. We feel that's a good beginning to starting over and tightening it up and buttoning it down and letting the Planning Commission re-review and make comment, and then set a public hearing with the Zoning Commission to address and discuss the language herein. Now, I would also point out that those are just changes to a small portion of this text, and I would encourage people that would like to see it to come up here and read it at Town Hall, or to, potentially we could send out email a copy to show people if they request it. And we can get it on the website. We can have that loaded up there. Most of this has to do with the commercial elements of what this is all about. So that's just sort of a nutshell, and it is absolutely available after this meeting for people to get. So, Connie, anything else on that?
I just had a question. Someone, I think it was Denise, said that 60% of Concord Township residents are retired.
Senior citizens.
Oh, senior citizens. Oh, okay.
Of that, probably 60% of that is retired.
Okay, all right.
The problem is fixed income.
We,
okay.
Our average age is 54. So.
Right.
Okay,
I knew that.
will, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So that is that, and we need to sign these. I'll do that now.
I will do that.
So, to reiterate, the Zoning Commission will set a public hearing at their July 11th meeting. That is all they will do as it relates to this. And the Planning Commission will re-review, and it'll move forward along that process in terms of public hearings and public meetings. I would entertain a motion to transfer the agreement, the media coordinator agreement that was received by EWC Media,
Oh, yes.
440 to 440 Marketing, to accept that coordinated transfer.
I so move.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Amy, we still need to set a public hearing on our tax budget.
Yes.
When would you like us to do that?
That'd be the 17th of July after 6 p.m.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say 6:30 on July 17th. That is a Monday.
Yep.
We will have our public hearing on our tax budget. Mike, we're going to have to set a meeting beyond the public hearing.
Yes, so you can do a
We'll do
special
that.
meeting
Then we'll
immediately
do a
following.
special- We will
Right.
do a special meeting
Right.
immediately following, and we will put all that in the paper for anybody that would like to come and
The budget has to be submitted to the county auditor
by the 19th,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so,
It has to be submitted by the 20th, but it's got to be voted on by the 17th.
Okay.
so-
I would accept a motion for approval of PO 53-2017 for combined purchase between the Fire Department and Service Department for $2,500 to Lee's Machinery.
so moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would ask for approval of the PO 54-2017 in the amount of $26,180 for concrete work on Tiffany Court to Pacheco.
I will second that. More road work getting done. We love it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, we have another matter before us that was presented to us from the zoning department. Where's my copy? I have so many papers.
Yeah.
It's in here. Okay.
Okay.
Quail Developers, Inc. Currently has a lot on the end of Hunting Lake Drive. Rick, if you want to zoom in, are you able to zoom in on this? Was the resolution going to be lousy?
Oh, that.
The developer has one lot. It's at the very end of Hunting Lake Drive, which dead ends, and is asking for a lot split on this, within this Quail Hollow PUD. As it's a PUD, the trustees have to approve everything. So basically what they're asking is take what is a large lot for that area and to make two smaller ones that would be 0.2765 acres and 0.2410 acres. And across the street are cluster units that are on even smaller
Yeah,
lots
right.
than that. So
I
that's
move-
what they're asking for.
Yeah. I would move to approve that amendment to Quail Hollow number 9 PUD, final development plan.
In light of the fact that the end of that street already has
Yes.
cluster on small lots,
Right.
I would second that, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then,
I would recommend for the Recreation Department approval of PO 55-2017 in the amount of $3,000 to House of La Rose for the purchase of beer for community days.
that is a PO we can all get behind. I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have future meetings and announcement. Mrs. Dawson, you want to handle that?
I would love to, Mr. Galloway, thank you. On Tuesday, July 11th at 7 PM, there'll be a zoning meeting here at Town Hall. On Wednesday, July 12th at 7 PM, BZA zoning, the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting will be here at 7 PM at Town Hall. Friday, the 14th of July at 8 AM, JED meeting here at Town Hall. On Monday, the 17th of July at 6:30 PM, there will be a public hearing to discuss the 2018 tax budget. And immediately following, there will be a special meeting regarding the tax budget.
Okay.
On Wednesday, July 19th at 6 PM, there's going to be a Community Day Planning Meeting in the conference room here at Town Hall. 6:30 PM, trustees' office hours at the conference room, and at 7:30 PM, trustees' meeting here at Town Hall.
And I would move that we recess for executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation.
I will second that and ask for a roll call on that.
Mrs. Luda?
Yes.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes. And that means that we will not be coming back for the cameras. We will close this meeting. The second executive session is over. There'll be no additional actions at this time.
Okay.
That's that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody at home, for watching.